get up as close to that price point as we could for a single band that would play all of the songs that you know. Things really changed when we shifted the mindset from being in the entertainment business or the music business into the memory business. And that was when we realized that people, organizations, and individuals would pay a lot of money for their memories. And when we changed that and started connecting music and genre to physical movement during a party, and there are a whole bunch of other things that go on there, that changed the dynamic, and it allowed us to go way up the price sort of elasticity band. So that musician now has 12 bands. They play all over the world. They've played for US presidents, celebrities, really rich Saudi princes who want their daughters to, have the best kind of wedding or whatever. And most of those bands are, in fact, the highest priced party bands that are non-recording artists. This last one, and I know many of you have kids or grandkids. This was another client from my consulting days. This was a group of very committed teachers who started a literacy program. Now, you can't, literacy, you think, how technology focused can that be? Well, they wanted to bring some assessments and some measurement tools into the classroom, and they wanted to do it for kindergarten through grade 3 so that not a single child would get to grade 4 without knowing how to read. So does anyone know why that is so important? To prevent anyone getting to grade 4? So if you can't read, statistically, if you can't read in the US by grade 4, you will never learn how to read. You will never learn how to read. If you can't read by grade 4, the chances are that you will drop out of school by 8th grade. If you miraculously make it through 8th grade, you are almost guaranteed an exit out of high school before 12th grade. So, you know what else is really fascinating and very frustrating about this? Do you know how municipalities judge the 20-year building plans for their jails? 4th grade reading stats. 4th grade reading stats. 4th grade reading rates are tied to teen pregnancy. They're tied to teenage violence. There's all sorts of correlation between 4th grade reading rates. And all this group wanted to do was to make sure not a single kid got to 4th grade without learning how to read. All the other stuff, all the other crap that people have to figure out as they go through school, that was somebody else's problem. This group went up against all kinds of big education companies. They went up against the big textbook publishers, the ones who really taught people how to read, the big technology players who had their systems in schools that were supposed to be doing assessment and measurement, all that kind of stuff. But the group won over and over because they didn't think that they were in the education business. They were just trying to prevent a single kid from going to 4th grade without knowing how to read. And they changed their whole business model, their whole delivery, everything, to the teachers and the principals of K through 3 so that no kid would ever pass through that gate. So I ask you, what business are we in? What business are we really in? What are we marketing in this business? If we're not in the software business, maybe we are, we'll have to answer that over the next couple of days. Why are we marketing software? Are we in the financial risk management business? What do we market if we're in that? Are we in the claims volume business? What business are we in? And then what's going on in the minds and the nervous systems of the prospects and of our clients in these organizations that we're trying to market to? These are the questions that we'll be talking a lot about over the next couple of days and over the next couple of months as well. I think that once we get the answers to these questions solid, once we all understand and agree to them, we will get a lot more traction in our market growth, market share, sales, all those things that tends to be lagging indicators of success, not leading. I think the leading indicator here is the answers to these questions. The other thing that I know is important to every single one of you, because most of you have joined this organization in the last 5 or 6 years, not everybody, but the majority of you. And I interviewed many of you, and many of you are here because you want to be part of a winning organization in an industry that means something, right? You want to actually have a career that is connected to a purpose. And the way that things feel is important to you. And sometimes at a company like Medecision, in a market like healthcare in the US, how does it feel? Does it feel grandiose and purposeful? Everybody's smiling all of a sudden. Who wants to describe how it feels to be at Medecision in these days? I'm not going to throw a single word out until somebody says one first. You are all so verbal all the time. Yes?
Confusing.
Confusing? Yes. People think it feels confusing to be here? Yep. What else? A little like ups and downs? What else? Hectic. Yep. A lot of pace and pressure. Intimidating. Okay, says the new guy on the team. Go ahead. Ambitious. Yeah. Innovative. Sue Schwartz pushes it over to the positive side. So all of those companies that I was a part of, the Hope, the Memories, the Prevention, they all had phenomenal goals. They had much purpose. They all felt the same way. And I'll tell you why. Because when you start something, like this shit's not easy, right? When you start something, when you are part of a transformation of an industry this size, with this many entrenched players, this many, 50-year-old commerce relationships and regulatory oversight, being part of any change is going to feel very difficult. So I wanted to describe to you another book that I'm reading. David McCullough's, I don't know if anybody's reading David McCullough's book on the Wright brothers, called The Wright Brothers. Most of us flew here today, right? And we probably only thought about, I don't know, how long the line was or, whatever. So I want to describe to you from David McCullough's book how the first flight felt. It was December 17th, 1903. McCullough writes, the name of the plane was the Flyer. The Flyer rose, dipped down, rose again, bounced, and dipped again like a bucking bronco when one wing struck the sand. The distance flown had been 120 feet, less than half of the length of a football field. The total time airborne was 12 seconds. Orville himself described it as very erratic. It was only a flight of 12 seconds, and it was uncertain, wavy, and kind of a creeping sort of flight at best. But at least it was a real flight at last. So we are having bumps and waviness, and sometimes we're creeping, right? And in, 100 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, maybe it will be 100 years, people are going to look back and say, wow, this U.S. healthcare system is just so consumer-focused. And there's the decision support in this system is just phenomenal. And I feel like I'm totally getting the value out of the system that I want. And we will sit in our, old age home or wherever we are at that time, and we'll think, I was a part of that, and it felt pretty freaking choppy there at the beginning. So anyway, welcome again. It's going to be a great couple of days. I am so thrilled that you're all part of this team, that we're all in this great company, in this great industry at this time. And I'm looking forward to doing this work with you. Before we ask Matt to join us, I just wanted to ask, actually we're going to ask Sherry to introduce Matt. I just wanted to ask Laura to introduce herself and her team. You can come up here and do it, because I'm not sure we'll be able to hear you. Or you can take Beth is coming to you with a microphone. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I'm getting out of the way.
Thank you. Oh, nice.
Very nice.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's product men and women. Strange visitors from another department with incredible insights and skills. Who can't remember? Wait. Who can't remember their script? Hold on. Yeah. Say wait. Line. Thank you. Who came to FuturePrep? Thank you. With insights and ability beyond those of mortal employees.
Ooh.
Yes, product men and women. Who can change the velocity of mighty roadmaps? Who can change the course of product pipelines?
Bending the healthcare cost curve with innovative products and solutions for government, payers, and providers.
Who disguised as Chip Hopper.
Susan Wintersheimer.
Laura Kanoff. Kevin Whalen. Clark Kent.
And Laura Kanoff, and 17 other mild-mannered yet hardworking product managers, program managers, analysts, clinicians. Hold on, do lots of things. That's right, yeah. Fight the never-ending battle for truth, revenue, and the Medecision way. So, seriously, wait, don't go, just very quickly, because we don't know some of you in the audience. I'm Laura Kanoff, I'm the Senior Vice President for Product Management. Kevin Whalen is a product manager for the provider market, or care delivery market, or health network market, depending upon what literature you're looking at the time. Susan Wintersheimer is a VP for product management who has 360 Care, which is pretty much the core workflow solutions, and so under care orchestration, she's got the clinical team, the clinicians, and she also has consumer empowerment, of course. And Chip Hopper, who's joined us on a contract basis for dashboards and analytics and product management. Not with us are Deb Faulkner, who is taking the role of government product management, and then Enrico DePaulis, who is playing the role of platform. So we, in product, essentially have the responsibility for overseeing the product development life. And that includes understanding the market and its insights and feeding that into our roadmaps and pipelines through a very disciplined product pipeline or roadmap, essentially, so trajectory through different investment gates. So we would like to thank you, marketing, our partners. We interact with lots of folks in the organization. We have stakeholders in marketing and sales and engineering, QA, development, all over. And we really appreciate your partnership to help us see what's going on in the market so that we can help the executive team make good decisions for our future. So, thank you.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Sherry Stewart. I'm with the marketing services team. How about another round of applause for Laura, Susan, Chip, Kevin, and our own Ellen Donahue Dalton. It's my great honor to introduce the next speaker. And before I did so, I wanted to offer you some, I was asked to offer you some perspective. How many in this room have been thinking about our Medecision's buyer persona, buyer journey, buyer life cycle? Good show of hands. How many have been totally all in, deep diving into that topic, trying to figure out the next wave of messaging, positioning, products, etc.? How many have no idea what I'm talking about? Thank you. Thank you, Matt Gove. That doesn't bode well for my introduction of you. Okay, so we have been laser focused on getting the messaging right. And when I say getting the messaging right, getting the value story right for our buyers at every single phase of the buyer journey, from what it means to capture their attention, from what it means to make them understand and see clearly that we are the partner of choice, from keeping their interest and their loyalty once they become a Medecision customer. And I think we all would agree that we're not there yet, right? We have some work to do. And part of that equation, I think, requires that we understand our buyer's journey. So for us, that would be the healthcare customer. We need to dig deep and understand what our customers are trying to sell to their customers to truly understand how we can help them. At this time in the healthcare market, could there be a more exciting time to be the chief customer officer at a health system? Think about what that person wakes up to every morning in terms of what they're trying, the hurdles that they're trying to jump through to capture their fair share of their market. This is what I woke up to this morning. Don't be shocked by the fact that I get the AARP book. I'm already shocked myself that I'm that old. But you know, the headline is warning: how the healthcare system can harm you. Right? That's what these folks wake up to every day as they try to capture the hearts and minds and wallets and love and stickiness of the healthcare consumer. Here to join us to offer his perspective on the shift to healthcare consumerism for the Piedmont Health System in Atlanta, the Chief Consumer Officer for Piedmont Health System, Kanye West fan,
I am.
Star Wars aficionado,
Obsessed.
and Dixie Chicks fan.
Sure.
Tried to reconcile all of that. Is Matt Gove. Please welcome him warmly.
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to mic myself up-ish. So, first of all, most importantly, thank you for the invitation, Ellen. Thank you for stalking me. It's always a pleasure to be stalked. I hope you will respect the restraining order after this is done. I'll get to this in a second, because I'm sure the first thing you guys are going like, the agenda definitely does not say Star Wars. But it's usually helpful to start, especially with a group of people that are from all over, to talk a little bit about Piedmont Healthcare and who we are, give you a sense of how we fit into the folks that you're used to dealing with. So we are as of October 1st, we've only got a couple more weeks, we'll have 7 hospitals, about, 200 or so individual locations, about $2.5 billion in annual revenue, about 500 and 600 employed physicians, and another 1,000 plus in our clinically integrated network. We have 10 urgent cares. We are working on some retail clinics. We do all manner of stuff in Atlanta. And the funny thing is, when you think about scale of the healthcare industry, there are 4 systems in Atlanta that look like us. So $2.5 billion times 4, and that's just the major systems. It boggles the mind every single day to think about how big this industry is and how much money flows through it. Second question you might be asking yourself is, what in the hell is a chief consumer officer? Because I get that question more than I get who's Piedmont Healthcare. So in our system, it includes marketing and communications. It includes, this thing is right in the way. It includes patient experience. It includes government relations, community benefit, and a whole manner of other things. But what it really is, more than anything, is a signal both to our organization and to others in our industry about what Piedmont cares about and puts at the center of its strategy. And that's the customer. And I say customer intentionally, and I get shit thrown at me all the time by physicians who want to argue about the definition of customer or patient. But until we start to recognize that these are people with choice and approach them as such, we're never going to get to the place that we need to be as an industry and certainly as a system, which is all I care about. And so today I hope to talk to you guys a little bit about our journey in healthcare consumerism, how we view our approach to the customer, how that's changed over time and where we're going as a system. I can tell you honestly, being close to a lot of my peers, there aren't many systems that look at it this way, but more and more do every day. And this is, if there's a spectrum, we're on the far end and we're a little bit ahead. There are plenty of people who are lagging behind, but the bulk of people are starting to consider these things, and I'll touch on that in just a second. So everybody that you deal with from a health system perspective is going to get here at some point. If they don't, they're going to get absorbed by somebody else who's here. It's going to happen. It's guaranteed. Okay, so I'm obsessed with Star Wars. I'm just going to put that out there. Ellen and I, Sherry, we all looked at it and they're like, what's the deal with the Star Wars thing? So when we created this presentation, the first time I did it was right around the time that the Star Wars, The Force Awakens came out, and which was one of the more exciting days of my life, behind birth, wedding. And I'll show you a picture in a second of these awesome pool noodle lightsabers that I made for my son's 4th birthday. But anyway, so the people who work with me in the marketing group, as we were putting this stuff together, they couldn't resist but to do this. And it was actually a surprise to me the first time I presented it, how it went through. So we like data. I hope you guys like data too, because there's a fair amount of it in here. What do you guys think the number one emotion felt during care consideration is? Just a couple of guesses. So you're a customer and you're thinking about healthcare. You're trying to decide what to do. What's the number one thing you're feeling? Bam! I wish I had a prize. Do I have anything handy? Do you like headphones? Okay, you got something. Yay, winner. It's confusion. It's my favorite picture of confusion in Star Wars, C-3PO. So confusion, this is what many healthcare consumers are going through every day as they're trying to sort through all of the information that is available to them and make a decision about what to do next. And 3 out of 5 are saying that they lack any real familiarity with their options. It is this information overload. So what do we need to do? And this is a mantra that we have at Piedmont, and I promise you, I'm going to talk about Piedmont as if it's some shining building on a hill over here, and everybody should come and visit us. We're trying, right? We're not the best. We haven't solved all the riddles, but we've committed ourselves to trying to fix it. And I think that alone is notable, even if we haven't gotten there yet. And so what do we need to do? We've got to make the complex easy. What every consumer business that is truly customer-centric and successful is good at doing is making the hard stuff look easy or feel easy to the consumer. So as Yoda would say, simplify we must. I would do a Yoda impression if I had a couple of drinks in me, but I don't. And I'm sorry I won't be here tonight because I'll be at a Kanye West show in Atlanta, or we could drink together. Dixie Chicks was this weekend in New Orleans. That was it's my 4th day in a row in an airport. So we got some examples. These are great examples. They all happen to be mobile, but what they are more than anything are businesses that have changed the way they've operated and started to understand that experience enabled by technology is something that every consumer is starting to expect, and that we in healthcare have got to figure out how to provide that same degree of simplicity. So Great Clips, obviously not a customer. However, I've heard that you can check in online if you want to. But think about it, I always think about this in the urgent care context. There is absolutely zero reason why you shouldn't be able to have a map like this. It's got all of the Piedmont healthcare urgent cares, right? And with a little number that tells you how long the wait is, and a little button that says, save my spot. I have this argument with our urgent care people all the time because they don't want to turn that on. This functionality exists. I just want to turn it on. Oh, how do we operationalize it? If you cared what the customer thought, you wouldn't ask, how do we operationalize it? You would just do it. You'd figure it out. And that's an important tenet of where we're going is customer centricity and asking yourself every time, what does the customer want from us? Not what do we want from them. Every health system you know was built by doctors and administrators that built what was best for them. That's why all of your doctor's offices are on this crazy campus that's crammed in the middle of a city. It's insane. It's like if Target went to Atlanta and said, we're going to build 5 stores. That's it. They're going to be huge. There'll be 5 million square foot stores, and that's where you have to go. And 100,000 people a day would go to this one place. It's crazy. And so building our system around what a customer wants is one of the core guiding principles that we're using from now on. Our CMO, the other CMO, my apologies, the Chief Medical Officer at Piedmont Healthcare, the second most important CMO in our system, makes an example all the time. He's got now, at this point, he's got 3 college-age children, or maybe some of them have just graduated. But 5 years ago, when I first got to Piedmont, he said, my kids have never stepped foot in a bank. They don't even know why those buildings exist. Because of this. I mean, think about the last time you went into a bank. I'm having a hard time remembering the last time I went into a bank. This is the only way that I interact with my bank at this point, which makes them happy, saves them money, they get richer, makes me happy. I get to go wherever I'm going. I can do it on the fly. I could do it in Philadelphia. My bank is in Atlanta. Doesn't matter. Everything works. So what's the analog in healthcare? Is it virtual visits, which is something that we do, where you can talk to a doctor anytime you want, wherever you are? There are lots of different opportunities for us to do something like this. The primary care physician, over time, the majority of your interaction should be electronic. Our CFO came to us from Kaiser, where he was their second in command in their finance group. And he said they're almost up to the point where 50% of their patient interactions is email. We got to get there. Zipcar. I mean, who would have considered, and I could have thrown up Uber because everybody loves Uber. But it's the same general principle, which is, what do you need a car? You don't even need a car anymore. And everything that you do, every interaction you have with this organization is technologically enabled. It's simple and easy. The process of creating this organization, to outfitting their cars, to all of the things, to the sort of deep technology that is required in order to provide this level of service is not simple, it's highly complex. But do you know about it? No. At all. And then finally, my number one example. So I live in Grant Park, which is a very old residential neighborhood just south of downtown Atlanta. It is a wildly liberal and hipster-ish neighborhood. We probably have 12 coffee shops that serve better coffee than Starbucks. And yet the Starbucks across my office gets every single penny that I spend on coffee. And they do it because I don't want to have to stand in line. I don't want to have to wait. Part of the problem with hipster coffee shops is they got to pour it over the thing and it takes forever to get your coffee. And I'm like, shit, guys, I just need to go to work. You know it's true. Every morning can't be Saturday morning where you can savor your damn coffee. You got to get to work. And so Atlanta's notorious for shitty traffic. So I will be sitting in the middle of traffic on my way to my office, and I'll just order my coffee, hit the button. It's ready when I show up. I walk in, I grab it, I walk out, I go to work. Again, that's not an easy thing to do. Think about the process and workflow that Starbucks had to fix and change. But why did they do it? Because their customers want it. And it's funny, you can see the ripples now. It's happening all over the industry. I don't know who lives in markets that have Chick-fil-A's. I know you do. So Atlanta is the home of Chick-fil-A, and while they do have their issues, which we won't need to go into right now, one thing they're very, very good at is making decisions about pretty much everything, experience particularly, around what they want the customer to feel, what they want that experience to feel like. But Chick-fil-A has copied this. So you download their app, you can do mobile ordering, you walk in, grab your bag, leave. It's only a matter of time before you can do this literally every single place that you want to buy something. And I'm sure you can do it, you can do it with your grocery stores now. If you have Instacart, it can come to you or you can go get it. It's just a matter of time. The hard part for healthcare in particular is that consumers, they actually expect this from us. They have a higher set of expectations. They think we should consistently meet or exceed their expectations as a customer, more than practically any other industry. We're sure as shit not doing it. We're not even coming close, right? We've got a captive audience right now. It's like they don't really have any place else to go, so hey, we got it, we win. But as more and more competition is introduced into our industry, expectations are only going to grow. So how in the world do we get there, Mr. Stormtrooper? I don't know why he would help. Stormtroopers are bad, if you don't know anything about Star Wars. Except for that one Stormtrooper and Finn. Anyway. So how do we get there? I should start by saying 5 years ago, when I got to Piedmont, and I came from Grady, which is a safety net institution in downtown Atlanta. So consumerism wasn't really top of my list. Before that, I was in commercial real estate. I knew nothing about healthcare. So 5 years ago when I showed up in healthcare, I naively believed that if I just walked in and explained to everybody that this is the ultimate consumer business, they would all be like, yes, this guy's right. Brilliant. Give him a raise. They didn't. I was quickly beaten down by physicians in particular but I kept preaching consumerism because I believed everybody has to interact with us at one point or another. Literally everybody has to interact with us. I don't know why in the world we wouldn't behave like a consumer business. And then I woke up a year and a half or 2 years ago, and now damn everybody, like consumerism, 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 yay, look. Like finally, we're all here. It's a very exciting time to be in healthcare. It's a very exciting time to actually care about consumers and want to deliver what's best for them in healthcare. I could not be happier that everybody is finally here to one degree or another. So this is how we think about it at Piedmont. We have 3 buckets. Access, choice, and experience. Access really is about locations as much as anything. But it's about how do we provide easy access to healthcare when people need it. It's a really simple concept. We've got all of these sort of sub-bullets, but at the end of the day, access and convenience is the number one thing people are looking for in healthcare. Now, that's not to say that when you're diagnosed with some weird form of cancer that you're just going to run down to the community hospital and get them to take care of it. But for your average interaction with healthcare, access and convenience is number one, period. We see it every single day. Choice. Choice to me really is about transparency. And this is a reflection of where we are as a society. When you think about buying things today, you rely on your experience with that, right? But let's say you don't have much experience or you're looking for something different or new and going out to a restaurant. When's the last time that you bought something worth more than a couple of bucks where you didn't seek other consumers' opinions about it first? I mean, you can't buy, I think about it all the time. Like, I won't even buy a $10 meal. I won't even go to a restaurant. I won't go to this shitty Mexican place on Memorial Drive right down from my house. It is gross and disgusting. But if I looked online and saw that 10 people really enjoyed the food there, I'd be like, yeah, I'm in. Like, that's the truth of today's consumer, is that they have so much information at their fingertips, and choice isn't about telling people who you are and what's awesome about your product. Choice is about how do you leverage what other people are saying about your product to help give people everything they need to know to make the best decision for themselves. And finally, experience. So I mentioned a second ago, patient experience reports to me. That is odd in a health system. You won't find many health systems where they said to the marketing guy, you can have patient experience, because it's too close to saying to the marketing guy, you can have control of some operations, which they're always afraid of. But I've begged my boss, the CEO, Kevin Brown. He's been there for about 3 years now. About a year after he got there, I started begging him for experience, because it seemed pretty clear to me that in most consumer-centric organizations, marketing is measuring and helping frame the experience, because the experience starts at the minute you start considering something. The very, very beginning of a consideration of a purchase, that's the experience. And in healthcare, that's historically been the domain of the clinician. Most of the systems you run up on have a doctor or a nurse in charge of patient experience. Not saying that there isn't a place for that. Of course there is. But if you put somebody who typically works off a checklist as their job, and I want my doctors to have a checklist, like, did I take all of the sponges out? Yes. Excellent, right? It's important to have a checklist when you're working as a clinician, but it's not the way to deliver the best experience. Experience is empathetic, it's emotional. You want people to feel something. There's got to be more depth to it than just a checklist. And so, convinced him finally to give me experience. And by doing that, we've created a completely different view, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that we're calling the Piedmont Way, which starts from consideration, goes all the way through the bill, and every point in between. And how do we make that easy? How do we make it simple for the customer? How long is that going to take us? A long time. Access. These guys are the guardians of access. They do not want you to get through. That's what healthcare feels like to people right now. It's like, hey, I need to see a doctor. Like I said to Ellen this morning, like if you just woke up and you got this weird rash on your arm, and you're like, I think I need to see a doctor. Think about how long it would take you to actually get in and see your doctor. Longer than the rash will last. I guarantee you that. A third of patients say they'd switch providers if presented with a more convenient personal experience. It's really important to note that there are more players in this game whose number one selling point is convenience. 38% of customers say they used an urgent care last year. How many people in this room used an urgent care in the past 12 months? That's probably 38%. 26% use an app for healthcare information. I suspect that there's more than that in this room, given what you guys do for a living. 11% use virtual visits. I'm telling you, it's coming. It's coming fast. The thing that's holding virtual visits back, and I'm going to get into it just a little bit more in a second, is that trust factor, right? It's hard to say I'm going to use Doctor on Demand or Teladoc or one of those other folks because you don't know who's on the other end. The minute that we put Piedmont's name on the front of that and it's Piedmont on call, it changes. For customers in Atlanta, it changes. It's like they don't know necessarily that all of the doctors they're talking to are based in Washington or Nebraska. They're licensed in Georgia. They're great clinicians. You put Piedmont's name on it, though, and it's a name that they trust. Doctor on Demand, you're like, I'll try it if I'm not actually worried that I'm sick. Third of consumers say they'd switch to an unfamiliar but more affordable healthcare provider. I'll get into price transparency in a second, but just a little bit. More importantly, this is when we got into the urgent care business, is the first time that people inside the organization started to think of us partially as a retail company, actually started looking at our locations as if they were retail locations. And yes, we have a big hospital, but think of it, I come from commercial real estate, so I think like a retail developer would, I think in bands, right? 1, 3, 5. Think about how far from a location will somebody travel to get to it, and how do we build a network that meets the needs of all the customers in those locations. Health systems do not think like this right now. We got to where we are by acquiring physicians' offices in other places, acquiring hospitals in other places, and where do we end up? We end up with like five doctors' offices in one location in one neighborhood. And everybody's so afraid of the doctors that they don't consolidate and move them around. We've actually stopped doing that now, at least with our employed guys. They're like, hey, sorry, you're moving. Start putting people in locations that make sense for the customer. So as we started to market our retail offerings, we worked hard on how do we develop a brand that makes sense for them. Beyond that, Piedmont On Call. So I mentioned a second ago we have a virtual visit service. We actually launched it with a startup in Atlanta, which has since failed. So we have to be one of, if not the only health system in the country that has used 2 different providers for our virtual visits. These are not, visits are not provided by Piedmont physicians. It's a service that we contract out completely. And what you may be thinking is, but isn't that fooling the consumer? I know most hospitals in Metro Atlanta staff their emergency rooms with staffing companies. Those aren't employed physicians. This is how people are receiving care all over the city, all over the country. Most important to this, though, is this is a direct reaction to what consumers are telling us they want and where things are going. And so if you want to be in the management business one day as a health system, and I'm not saying we do. I don't actually know if we want to be in the population health business. We'll get forced in that direction over time. But this is a low-cost tool that's going to be particularly important as we try to figure out how to manage folks. There's a reason that your health plan is telling you to use this. They are saying to you, hey, use Doctor on Demand and you can use it for free. Yes, sir. No, please do.
Big fan of the on-call doctor piece. My question really, if you're using this, how many patients?
Microphone.
How many patients through this? Are told through the virtual visit to go see the doctor? Right?
Very few.
I mean, what are they actually being able to be treated for through the virtual visit?
the vast majority of the calls are resolved on the call because it's the same thing for the most part. It takes most of the volume comes at it's like the retail clinic level. So it is sniffles and colds and rashes. It's urinary tract infections are big ones, right? And so I think what we forget is that the majority of our interaction with a clinician in any office visit is verbal. We're describing our symptoms. They're thinking about what that